Hey, good morning and welcome back to Trading Options Network. I'm excited, as always, to go ahead and give my insight on the market this morning. But as always, we have to go ahead and get rid of this disclaimer here. Everything this morning is solely for intentional purposes, so do with the information what you will, but take responsibility for your actions. And of course, be sure to like, follow, or subscribe on your favorite social media platform to stay up to date with everything that is Trading Options Network. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the heat map here for today. As you can see, we are very, very green. Okay. This morning, we did have some financial data come out, and clearly the market is reacting positively to it, with the exception of NVIDIA, because NVIDIA does its own thing. NVIDIA doesn't care what anybody or anything does, so it's just always going to do its own thing. That being said, a vast majority of everything else is very green this morning. Let's go ahead and take a look at the S&P right now also. So I had gone ahead and, as you can see, put in a couple lines here. So the one horizontal line there at the top, that is the all-time high that happened mid-July. As you can see, we are testing that, but we have not quite passed it yet, or even really touched it. We're testing it, but we haven't quite touched it yet. So we have a little bit of wiggle room here. I also put in this diagonal line. That is a level of support. You could clearly argue that we had broke earlier and then came right back up above it like it was no big deal, which that is a telltale sign that we are still in a very, very bull market. Obviously, the very beginning of August, we had the Japanese yen go a little bit crazy and cause the market to absolutely plummet. But the market shook it off and it just went right back up. And I was not expecting that. In fact, everybody I talked to was not expecting that. We were expecting this to be the pullback. But again, it didn't happen. It did not happen. So we are right back into our near all-time highs. We're right back into a bull market, and until the market tells us otherwise, again, we have to assume that the market is going to remain bullish. You can argue that this is creating a very, very big ascending triangle going all the way back to mid-April. Even though we did break out again in early August, but you almost have to pretend like that didn't happen. Almost, simply due to the fact that it was brushed off and went right back up into this channel. So again, I'm going to be looking for the S&P to essentially remain neutral for maybe another few days to a week or so, but ultimately it's going to have to break out of this triangle one way or the other. Again, as strong as everything has been, also add in the fact that we have an election coming up in 2 months, basically 2 months and a week. We should expect, in my opinion, to see a little bit more of an increase here in the S&P. How high do we go? I don't know. I don't really think we'd go that much higher, but I could see 575 for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if that had happened. But nonetheless, again, we are going to have to break out of this pattern here sooner rather than later. So we'll see what happens. Let's go ahead and take a look at the overall sectors. So we're going to start obviously with the consumer discretionary here. Consumer discretionary, as I mentioned the other day, has been very, very neutral. It doesn't want to seem to go one way or the other. Consumer staples has been extremely bullish here. Hit at that little bit of resistance there. Maybe a little bit of a pullback, but I would not be surprised if it continued to push higher itself. Energy sector has been a little bit more on the bear side. We'll see where this one goes. Financial sector has recently broken out to new highs, and I would not be surprised if that just continued to move higher. Healthcare, same thing as financial. It's just broken out to new highs. Again, Would not be surprised if that started going higher. The industrials, actually, it just broke out. I know I mentioned the other day, on Monday, I believe, where we were at this channel and you had two options. You could wait for it to see if it breaks and then go, open up some bull positions in the industrial sector, or you could see if this line is going to remain as a resistance line and it's going to go back down and retest this support line down there. Obviously, it's broken out. And not only is it broken out, if you follow me on any of the social medias, my tip of the day yesterday was don't get faked out by the first breakout. And one of the things I mentioned in there, in that quick clip, it was like a 30-second clip, is oftentimes once it breaks out, you want to see what was previously resistance show as support. And that's exactly what happened. We broke out here. Kind of zoom in a little bit more there. We broke out, and then we came back down and tested it 2 days in a row. And both days it acted as support. So what was previously resistance, and it was a tough resistance for a while, is now acting as support. So we can clearly see that this wants to move higher. So if you have any bulls, or I should say any stocks on your bull watch list that's in the industrial sector, you might want to take out some positions. Materials is kind of the same thing. Just broke out, and we want to see, is this going to act as support, or was this a fake out? So right now it's looking like it wants to act as support as well. Very, very similar to the industrials, which, materials and industrials is very, very similar sectors. So I'm not surprised that they're doing kind of the same thing. Let's see, the real estate industry, or sector, I should say. Again, all-time highs, maybe a little bit of a pullback. We'll see what happens here. But again, would not be surprised if it moves higher. Technology. This is the one that is everybody's favorite, of course. It has all the biggest stocks in it for the most part. What are we going to do here? Is it just going to continue to have this line act as resistance and ultimately fall apart? In which case, if that does happen, what does the rest of the sectors do? I mean, you got to remember, technology is by far the biggest sector. I mean, it has this entire piece of the S&P. I mean, we're looking at almost, I think it's like 20%, right around there. Very close to 20%. Don't need to go back. But nonetheless, this is one of those sectors that if it falls over, it could bring the rest of the S&P with it. Literally the rest of the market. So we have to watch what technology does. Now, if it just continues to stay neutral and not really go anywhere, and it just allows everything else to do its thing, then by all means, we could easily see the rest of that market go up while technology is not doing much. But overall, the technology sector is starting to show a little bit of weakness. Communication services, kind of the same thing as industrials and materials. That being said, industrials and materials was actually breaking out a little bit higher than previous highs. This one's flirting with its previous highs. So if I go back and look at the industrials again, this one was a slight uptick. So it was every single time it hit this line, it was slightly higher than the previous one. Same with materials. Actually, no, materials was more about flat. So coming back down to communication services, is this going to act as support, or is it still going to remain resistance? That's a big one as well, because communication services, while it's not nearly as big as technology, is still a decent sized sector. So, we'll see what happens with this one, if this line is going to act as support now, or if it's continued to show as resistance. Personally, I think we're going higher. Utilities, just been a bull. It's been a bull. One of my stocks that was on my stocks of the day, Duke Energy. In fact, if I go ahead and pull it up, it's still on my watch list, but it's also still in this high base. Okay, so until it breaks one way or the other, I'm continuing to watch this stock. I think it goes higher, but I want to see verification of it wanting to go higher before I actually open up any positions. But yeah, overall, I absolutely 100% do believe that it's going to be going higher. So All that being said, this market is showing me that it wants to be bullish. Yes, we are coming up to September, which is one of the slowest months. It is the slowest month in the market every single year, typically. We should still, in my opinion, expect to see, I'm not going to say strength. I don't necessarily expect to see massive strength in the market, but I also do not expect to see weakness either. Maybe we go down a little bit in September, and then when we get closer to the election, starts popping off. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do believe that even though September is about to be here, which is typically the 1 month of the year that's going to have its, lowest gains. In fact, I think it might even, overall, if we were to average out all Septembers, it might even be red. But it's just too bullish of a market, too many things going on for me to believe that we just fall apart and start crashing. Now, after the election, God only knows what's going to happen. The world may end. Who knows? But until that happens, you have to remain bullish here. I mean, just the simple fact, this climb back up from this massive, massive drop over the course of a couple of days is just so incredibly strong. It's so incredibly strong that I'm actually shocked we didn't just blow through all-time highs. We got up to these all-time highs. I'm shocked we didn't blow right through it. Now, that does not mean that because we didn't blow through it, I'm less bullish. It doesn't at all. I think, basically what's happening is the bulls were like, wait a second, we're not supposed to be down here. And they just gave it all they had for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks roughly, to get it back up here. And now they're just taking a break. It's halftime. It's halftime right now. They're getting some water. They're catching their breath. And then I would not be surprised if it does move higher. So we'll see what happens. Continue to follow me on social medias for more tips of the day, as well as my stocks of the day that I'm adding to my watch list pretty much on a daily basis. That way we can absolutely 100% all stay on the same page and continue making money as a group. So until this afternoon, I will see you guys later. I hope you guys are being smart. I hope you're all making money, and I look forward to seeing you in a little bit. Take care.